Welcome to the Mom and podcast. We're your hosts, Suzanne Kearns
and Missy Stevens. We want to help you through everything that happens in the ellipses, from your professional life to your emotional health.
You're a mom and so much more. Let's figure out what comes next together. Welcome to the Mom and podcast. I'm Suzanne Kearns, a mom and writer, LGBTQ and sex ed advocate, and today a half marathon trainer. But by the time this airs next week, I will be a half marathon recoverer. So we'll see. Yes, yay!
So exciting! I'm Missy Stevens, mom and writer, foster care advocate. And today, by the time this airs, I will be mourning the end of a girls' trip and want desperately to be back on vacation, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm so jealous already.
Yeah.
We are so happy to have Kay Newton with us today. Kay loves to inspire people around the world to live midlife on their terms, full of fun and vigor. As a midlife strategist and author, Kay is passionate about simplicity. She loves to create and hold space where an individual or group can master their own purpose in life. No magic, weird stuff, pills, or potions, just plain, practical, down-to-earth common sense. Kay loves beachcombing for plastic, walking the, I'm going to say this wrong, Majorcan mountains, and expanding her own horizons, which in turn she shares with others. Welcome, Kay.
Welcome.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. And you got Majorca so well. You did a really good job there.
Oh, so much better than how I originally wanted to say it. I was like, is it Mallorcan?
Well, we were going to put a little Texas spin on it.
There you go.
Had first, but I think you did a beautiful job as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we did your bios. We have a sense of who you are, but we want to give our listeners a little more K101. You've had quite the international journey and your story has progressed, and we just really would love for them to hear what impacted your choices and how you got where you are right now.
It's an interesting story, and at the end of this week, I will be 60. So I've had 60 years on the planet.
Happy birthday!
Hence the new haircut and the new style.
Love it.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because quite often these journeys that you have, they're unexpected. They're not things that happen to you planned. And so, I've had a couple of big forks in my journey, as you can tell. I do not have a Spanish accent. I do not speak Spanish at all without my Yorkshire accent. But I've been here for 35 years. I originally got here, I sailed here on a boat. So I used to live in the north of England. Again, if you know accents, you can hear that. And I hated my job. I worked in retail, worked in a shop and was bullied by the manager. One day I was down at the marina eating my sandwiches and saw this big boat come in. Anyway, I ended up jacking in my job, throwing all my stuff back at my parents, giving up my apartment and jumping on board this boat and sailing to Majorca. It took me 3 weeks to get here. And I tell everybody I never swam back. And I haven't. I'm still here. So I met my husband. He's from South Africa. And we decided to make Majorca our home. We brought up 2 children here. And just as our oldest one left the nest and our youngest one was just about to fly the nest, my husband got this amazing opportunity to build a 5-star hotel in Zanzibar in Tanzania, which is East Africa. So we left the boys behind. So instead of having an empty nest, we had no nest. And we went to live in a 2-roomed, tin-roofed house by the beach in Zanzibar, where I learned all about simplicity. So we took 20 kilos with us. And later on, for a couple of years later, I then walked the Camino de Santiago, which is here in Spain. It's a walk that goes from the French border down to Santiago de Compostela. So I walked for 34 days, 729 kilometers with a 7.5 kilo backpack. And realized that actually simplicity is less. So there's a little bit of my story.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
amazing.
There's so many.
I can't close my mouth.
I know. I mean, it's the thing that we all talk about doing, right? But I mean, probably a fraction of a percent actually do it.
And I think that's the key, isn't it? We talk about doing it. People say to me, how you must have always been adventurous. And for me, I don't know any different. I suppose I have always been adventurous, but it's always been part of me. Did I think about it? No, there was just an opportunity in both big scenarios. I'm telling you, there was just the opportunity. And so I took them. There was no time to think about it. It was just, doing that. I'm going to go. So,
I think that's the
we
key.
did it.
Taking the opportunity. A lot of people do have
Yeah.
opportunities and then we overthink it.
I was
And then
getting ready to say, then we analyze for days and
yes,
it's too late.
And we survey
It's
all
gone.
of the people in our lives and try to get a consensus. And then, then the ship has sailed. Literally, the ship has
Have you
sailed.
ever jumped out of an aircraft, a parachute jump? You'll know that there's that hesitation at the top, but it's so slim. It's like a couple of seconds and then you have to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. Sometimes you just have to do that in life. You just have to not hesitate. You've just got to go.
Ooh. Well,
I think that's something Suzanne and I both are not necessarily afraid, but we do overanalyze and we do take in a lot of information from all around us. And that hesitation sometimes turns into just plain old inertia. And so
I spent more time thinking about which cheese I was going to get yesterday at the grocery store, probably.
I hope you made a good decision.
I did actually. You know what? After all that, we forgot to eat it. So that's very symbolic. I think that's a nice metaphor for my life. I spend a lot of time deciding which cheese to get and then I forget to put it out. So, but okay. Well, then this leads right into your current role as a midlife strategist. So for some people who don't know what a midlife strategist means, can you explain what that means? And then also what kind of questions your clients come to you with and how you help them work through that inability to take those chances, to choose the cheese.
She's not asking a lot of me, is she? One question. 5 minutes.
Yeah. How much time do you have?
Talk fast because we know you have a deadline.
So see if I can go back and unpick it a little bit. A midlife strategist for me is not necessarily the same as coaching. I don't like to call myself a coach because I think there's a tendency for people wanting to come to a coach, a bit like going to a doctor. I've got something wrong with me and I want fixing. You will fix me. And the answer to that is I can't. The only person who can fix you, if you think you need fixing, is you. Let me tell you now, there's nothing about you that needs fixing to start with. And the other thing is, if you have a strategy, so you have a template, if you think of a building, you build up the maybe a metal structure, that's your template, but you can fill that then with whatever you want to fill it with. So I like to design one-on-one strategies. So whatever you come to me with, and it can be anything from just lost your job and you're making a decision. Maybe you've had the unfortunate news that you're getting divorced, you didn't expect it. Maybe your kids have left home and you're not quite sure what you want to do. All the big things that happen to us in midlife, you and I can work together on building a framework for you to then fill in with what you want to fill it in with, if that makes sense. Does that answer all the questions?
I think it did. So that sounds like those are some of the main buckets that people come to you. I mean, you think about, it feels so unique and alone and like you're the only person who has faced some of these challenges. But I think when you do stand back and look at it, probably from a bird's eye view, it probably does fall into, just a handful of buckets of all these similar situations we all find ourselves in midlife.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it, isn't it? You've got the fact that you are unique and individual, and we tend to forget that. But at the same time, yes, on average, when you get to this age, we're all going through it. So
yeah, we want to hang here for one more minute because we want to talk about that sandwich generation piece that a lot of us are finding ourselves in, but we tend to use our podcast to get some of our questions answered as well. And this midlife strategy really speaks to us. And you talk a lot about the midlife table toolkit and your address, account, adjust process. And it helps people get their mojo back in 5 days. So I would love to 5 days from now have my mojo intact. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Again, it's a process. It's a template that you would use, and you would need to spend some time away thinking. And that can be an issue at midlife. We know time's quite short, but just taking a little bit of time out of the normal daily routine to think about how you would like to deal with whatever's going on for you personally. And then really sit down and work out the accountability of what do you want from this? And then what's the tiny little step, the adjustment that you want to make? Because just remember, it's not just now. If you walk the Camino, you know this, it's a step-by-step process that gets you 729 kilometers down the road. It's the same. If you take a little step every day for 365 days, that's 365 differences you can make. So it's working out where you are, what you want to change, and then doing the changes. So being accountable for it. The table of life is like doing a mini self-audit, really. So if you think of an old-fashioned French table, and I love to use that analogy, it's normally big and sturdy, and that's what you want it to be, big and sturdy, because whatever life throws at you then, you'll be able to cope. And so you are that life table. And there's 4 parts that are the table legs, the 4 sturdy legs. One is your health. So where are you on your health journey? What do you need to address, be accountable for? What do you need to adjust? The same with your wealth. Wealth is not just money, finances. It's also what you give back to your community. And I think that's really, really important because, again, it's a balance. Your knowledge, what do you know? What don't you know? And what don't you want to know? So then you can work out who you want to go and get help from. And we often, at our stage in life, know so much that we don't have a certificate for. You just think of all the skill sets you've got from, being the nurse, the taxi driver, the chef, the sex kitten, you name it. You do it all. You don't have certificates for it. So if you've got all those in place and you know your knowledge, the last part, which is the part that gets most women shocked, and I can't wait to see your faces, it is connection. And connection, I always say to the people who come to me, who do you know? How many people do you know? You need to have a list of about 30 people you can connect with if you have an emergency.
Wow.
And you see them going, oh, yeah, I can get to 5.
Yes, 5 sounds
I
good.
can maybe get to 10. Why is 30 a really good number to be thinking about? Because we're all going through the same stuff at midlife. So you may not be available the time you have the emergency. Or that person may need you for an emergency and you're not available. So if you've got a good circle of influence, a group of people that you can connect with, then the tendency is if something happens to you, like, your house burns down or your husband kicks you out or whatever it may be, you've got somewhere to go to. And then the tabletop is you knowing yourself intimately. And we don't do this. We're so busy looking after everybody else that we forget who we are, our uniqueness. So it's coming back to who are you, what really sets you going, and working on you, which I think is something that we don't do. So that's the table of life.
Gosh, there's so many things that as you were talking about them, I didn't want to interrupt, but there were so many things that were going bing, bing, bing. Because about the connection, was it Jen Mann who was telling us in her book, Midlife Bites, where she realized when the car breaks down,
who do you call?
She's like, if my husband's out of town, she got to this point where she's like, she's an independent woman, whatever. And she has people that she knows, but who's going to come get me on the side of the road? I think that was Jen. If I'm quoting,
it was Jen.
It was Jen.
It was Jen. Yeah. And we get so busy. I hate the word busy. I'm trying to find another one to use, but we just get wrapped up in all the things that we're doing. And I think we fail to nurture those connections.
Yeah.
And I just love that reminder. And 30.
It's probably an exaggeration, but it makes you think. That's the key, isn't it? It saves you going on the normal, my good 5 friends who I could reach out to, and maybe I can squeeze it to 10. How about 30?
Oh, Well, that actually okay, so
Yeah.
I'm thinking that and my mind's boggling at like, do I know 30 people? But then
You
I
do.
also love one of your legs, the leg with the knowledge and also knowing what you don't wanna know, because I do think that's another thing that I don't know, you feel like you need to know everything, and
Mhm.
you almost feel bad about yourself if there's something that you don't know a lot about or that you feel that you're not good at, and not really thinking about, no, what are my true, like my aptitudes, my skills, and where should I be focusing my energy and learning? And,
Mhm.
and really trusting myself that if something's not interesting and I don't want to learn about it, that's not a
Somebody
statement on
else's
me. Yeah,
passion.
exactly. Leave it for someone else. I love that.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to know everything about everything.
I
Oh,
just think if you don't do that, how much space it saves you. It's a simplistic thing to do, isn't it? To own up and be honest and say, do you know what? I really don't like cooking. Great.
yeah.
So I
Let someone
really
else
don't
do
like doing the accounts. So what?
it.
Find somebody who loves numbers. It's not a train crash. It's quite easy, really. It's just a simple switch, isn't it?
Yes. Well, okay, so there's that idea of knowing and owning and taking some pride in knowing what you don't care if you don't know. But now I'm
Yeah.
trying to tie that with also the 30 friends because I'm also
You're
getting
hung
to
up on that, aren't you?
no, I'm getting to that stage in life too where I'm really trying to be intentional. That is my word for the year, intentional,
Mhm.
and not just having friends for the sake of having friends. And also really being like, does this person bring me joy? Do I feel good with them? Do they inspire me?
Right.
What is
Or do
that
they drain
thing?
me of
Do they
everything?
drain
Exactly.
me? Am I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
am I hanging out with them just because I've kind of always hung out with them and I feel like it'd be awkward if I don't hang out with them anymore? But I do think that okay, so if you're going to put a number 10 or a 20 or 30 on it, not just having them, because you need someone to pick you up on the side of the road, but being like, let's be really intentional about who those people are.
And
Mhm.
I think part of that as well is going, do I want to pick them up at the side of the road?
There you go.
Right.
There you
Right.
go.
Because it has to be both ways, this is how we build connections. You want to be available for them just as much as you want them to be available for you. So it's
Right.
a
Mhm.
If
two-way
they
swing,
only
isn't
call
it?
you when they're on the side of the road, that's not so
No,
helpful.
no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I love the
Missy, what's
table.
your word of the year?
Delight.
I like that one too.
Thank you.
Yes. Do you have one,
Yeah.
Kay?
I do.
What is
What's
yours?
yours?
Coddywomple.
Okay.
Well, that's gonna take some explanation.
I'm glad that
I'm
wasn't in
gonna
your
I'm gonna
bio.
leave that. Let's move on now, and you can check that on Google.
So we need
Yeah.
we need a definition of that and a definition of Mallorca. Yeah, what is Cottywomple? I'm just a
So
5-second version.
it's to go purposefully in a direction without knowing where you're going.
Oh, well, that's amazing.
Isn't that nice?
I love it.
That's what life's
Love
all
it.
about, isn't it? If you think about it.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
I'm changing my word. No, I'm just kidding. That's I
Could do a
love,
word of the quarter, and next quarter could be Cottywomple.
there you go. It's my season of the year where I will be Cottywomple.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so fun. Yeah, we're finally
Oh,
getting back to we had a couple of years off with COVID where we're like, there's no word of the year anymore. Where those are probably the years when we really needed a word of the year,
right.
but we're
Yeah,
finally getting back
right.
into it.
All
But
right. My
yes.
word was just survive.
Yeah.
Yay.
Feed the children.
Yep. Stay sort of sane.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Well, speaking of children,
It's perfect segue.
I know we had a nice conversation previous to this conversation about caring for your parents and then also taking care of children at the same time. Missy and I's kids are about the same age. We've got around the 16-ish age and then around the 12-ish age for our kiddos. And my mom listens to this. I don't want to call her an aging parent, but technically we're all aging parents. So no offense, mom, you're doing great. but but part of the, midlife these days, we are in this unique sandwich generation where you
Mhm.
can find yourself caring for aging parents while also caring for children. I know that you have a unique story around this, but also what you see from your clients that you work with and where does that time then get pulled from? Is it that they have to take a break from their career or their marriage is suffering? Just like usual, just taking it out of their self-care time? I don't want to say just, I mean, we just do. So how are you seeing that and how are you helping women work around that?
Again, it's a very unique process and it depends entirely on you and your circumstances and where you are in the whole process. So it's difficult to just say, this is going to be the answer, but I think women do tend to take it from their self-care time. I think that's the first priority, as in the first thing that we let go.
Hmm.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's not an easy time, but I think we've been led to believe that life should be an even keel all the way through. And if we're maintaining that, we're succeeding in being a good human being or a good parent.
Mm.
But I always think of the heartbeat monitor. If you've got a heartbeat monitor, it goes up and down.
Mhm.
And life is all about the ups and the downs all the way through the process. Because if it wasn't, we'd be dead,
Flatline. Oh, I
flatline.
like that.
We'd be dead. So,
Yes.
we are always striving for this flat line for some reason.
Mm,
But yet life's not about that. It's about the ups and downs. And yes, the sandwich generation is a difficult time. And it's going to be on the down part of the journey.
Mhm.
It is stressful. It is difficult. There isn't a lot of time. You do feel pulled in all directions. But at some point, you'll come out the other end. So when you get to the end of your life, you've evened out, if that makes sense.
mm.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first realization is it's only a set piece in the whole story. It's only a certain time. That time will expand and be different depending on whether your kids stay at home, whether your parents survive longer, whether
Mhm.
they're ill from a young age or whether they're healthy until later on in life. There's so many weathers, so many scenarios. Like you can't really
Right.
answer the question. You've just got to be open to the journey. And I think that's the key, isn't it? And you've got to really do what's true to you. So, for example, my parents were back in the UK. My husband's parents were all the way down in South Africa. So it wasn't as even as if they were just round the corner if there was an emergency.
Oh.
Mhm.
It was a different story from what most people go through. My brother lived 10 minutes from my parents' home, but it would be me who got on the plane, dropped my family to go to deal with the emergencies. And that's
Yeah.
just how it was,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
not right, it's not wrong. It's just the story. So,
Yep.
my husband picked up a lot of those pieces because he ended up being house parent, for my kids. And it was an interesting time because at home, I'd had my kids later in life in my 30s. So we were all going through hormonal hell at the same time. They're going through the teenage stage. You're
Yep.
going through
That's where we
menopause. Your
are.
That
husband's
is
going
where we
through
are.
andropause. And,
Uh,
you know,
Yep.
what do you do? Well, you open a bottle of wine or you all laugh, you just
We
say,
laugh.
it's not
Yeah.
me, it's the hormones speaking.
oh my
We
gosh.
absolutely had a moment this weekend. We were all together away for a swim meet and had spent quite a bit of time together, and it was complicated, stressful. We had every kind of weather in 48 hours. It rained, it sleeted, it snowed, it was sunny, it was windy. Like we had everything. And we had to just take a step back, my husband and I. And we were like, this is so many hormones in this
Yes.
hotel room. Mine,
Yes.
the boys, his, the stress. Like there's so much going on here that's not us. And when you said it's not right or wrong, it's just the story,
Yeah.
that resonated with me so much because we want to assign these values to things that absolutely they don't really have a value. They just are. And it's how we deal with them and how we choose to look
Yeah.
at it that makes the difference. And
Yeah.
I think I'm going to tattoo that on me somewhere. It's not right or wrong. It's just the story.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And as long as you are happy with that story, that's the key, isn't it? My parents were adamant they didn't want to ever go into care homes. And my
Mm.
mum, unfortunately, had a stroke 5 years before she actually passed. And my parents were on a holiday in Norway at the time, which made it extremely stressful.
Mm.
But
Oh yeah.
um, interestingly, my father became my mother's primary carer. and she had care at home, but there was no time for him to take downtime unless
Mm.
somebody went over to be with them. And then he, with lifting, ended up having to go for his own surgery, and so then needed care for that time. And of course, that was
Right.
not easy. So it wasn't just a quick over for the weekend. It was, I think I was there nearly 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then when my mother passed, my father survived her 3 years, but developed cancer. And so again, I just down tools at home, said, sorry, guys, and went back to be with him in his final moments.
Yeah.
Um,
And how old
it,
were your kids at that time?
they were coming up to the end of their teens.
Okay.
So,
It's a little
yeah,
older.
yeah. So, it was my choice. I didn't want my parents to go to a care home,
Oh,
and I wanted to be with my father at the end of his journey. So, everything else, sorry guys, got put to one side.
Yeah.
Dad, you're in charge. Boys, you're big enough to help him out, and
yep.
Yeah.
that's it.
And we had talked about on our previous chat about if you're living with your 20 kilos of possessions compared to then going through your parents' belongings and being responsible for either archiving or throwing away or
It's hard.
distributing or whatever the case may be. You have probably a very both ends of the spectrum point of view from that as far as the way you were living for yourself and then how you were forced to be responsible for all these possessions. Then can you kind of speak to that and any recommendations that you would make for how people can deal with that if
Suzanne, I
you're
love your
Yes.
questions. They just go on forever and ever.
I know.
There's just
A
so many
lot
points.
in here. A lot.
I know.
Hang on a minute. Let's go back. Just tell me if I miss out something.
Oh no.
So my parents had lived in the same house ever since they got married. So they've been there, I think, well, I guess 60 years or something. It was huge. It'd been, they've been there forever.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing I think in clearing out, I mean, my father had done a phenomenal job beforehand, but the hardest thing I think was clearing out the things like the photograph albums.
Mm,
And photograph albums are a very emotional thing to have to deal with, I think. And lots of the
Mhm.
photographs don't mean much to you, but you know that they meant a lot to them. So that was pretty tough going, I think.
Yeah.
Um, I had like 10 days to sort out the house between my father passing and the funeral. So it wasn't a great deal of time before I was getting on the
No.
plane to go back to pick up my life again.
yeah.
And there was a huge realization for me that it didn't have to be like that for my kids. We've grown up in this house. It was our family home. Luckily, all our personal childhood memories had been removed from the house.
You're
There
right.
wasn't a great deal there, but it was still lots of memories. And I didn't have to do that for my own kids. And that was one of the reasons when we were lucky enough to go off to Zanzibar that I realized that we could actually sell our family home. The kids had flown the nest. They didn't need it anymore. And we
Mhm.
could create a life for ourselves that didn't include those memories. It doesn't mean to say that we haven't kept the memories, because we do. We keep
Right.
them in our brains, don't we? We have
Mhm.
them, and we've got our photographs, and we talk about them often. It's just that there's not the emotional connection to it as there would have been if we were still living there.
Mm.
So yeah, that was something that we did. And also we're very aware of possessions. So we don't live
Mhm.
a minimalistic lifestyle, but we do live a simple lifestyle. And I've made sure that over the past 5 years or so, we've done a lot to not only help in the process of, when we do pass, that we don't have as much to deal with, but in our everyday life, how we walk lighter on the planet. So we don't use toxic products in the house, either for cleaning nor for personal products. We cook healthily homemade food that's sourced as best we can in an organic way. And we just live more, what I call more sensibly. So yeah, it's been a whole process though that we've gone through over the last 5-10 years, really.
I like that idea of walking lighter on the planet.
Mm,
That's another thing I would like to write down and post somewhere.
yeah, it's a beautiful
And
way of putting it.
not being a minimalist, but really thinking about and being intentional about what you have and delighting in the things that you have without letting them own you. And we went through that a little bit when my grandmother passed away. We didn't know which things really meant a lot to her. She had never said to us, "This matters and I'd like you to have it," or "This is nothing to me. Please don't worry about getting rid of it." And it was hard. There were these moments where I felt like we would stop start, like we would be going through things and then we would all get hung up like, shouldn't somebody want this? Like, should somebody take this? And
Yes.
it's so hard. It's so hard. And my parents have, as a result, done a good job of going through their things,
Yes. We
and
went through that.
cleaning out.
My mom moved actually to be closer to us, like right at the beginning of COVID, back when we were all
Mhm.
still scrubbing down our groceries and like really, I mean,
All right.
the craziest time of COVID to be moving, to downsizing the house she had lived in 40 plus years to be able to fit into a moving van and move across to Texas. My brother and I thought we would go and we would help her pack it up. And as everything went in the box, we would reminisce and look at it and be like, oh, remember this? And then, you wrap
Yeah.
it up and put it in the box. Like, no, she had to hire, a housekeeper to come put stuff. She didn't even know half the stuff that was in boxes because it was just such a scramble to get out of there
Yeah.
in the time that we thought was safe. And literally the people bought the house with most of the stuff still in it. And so she's like, I think my ice skates or whatever from when I was little, my cake topper from my first wedding is up in the attic. Like I think her wedding dress is up there. And it's just this, it kind of becomes like, yeah, is that stuff really important? Are they doing me a favor by just being like, here, don't even make me deal with it? And, and everything she has in her home are the things that she chose that were really special now. But,
Mhm.
it's a 1 bedroom apartment versus a 3 bedroom house that she'd had for all these years. But I do think she learned from her husband passing and having to go through all of his stuff, and he was a collector of sorts, of
Of sorts.
especially office supply products, which I can appreciate. I'm
Uh-huh.
a sucker for some but I do think that going through that process makes you not wanna do it for others, and so I think she was
Yeah.
conscious of that in selecting the things that she brought to her new house, the things that would truly bring her joy, and that were important to her. And then everything else is like, yep, they can just keep it in the house. I don't need it. Although I think there's some pots and pans that she's like, oh, I wish I could go back and get that. But those are more
But
practical.
I think there's always something you wish you'd kept.
Yeah.
Right.
And, down
Right.
the line you go, oh, yeah, I really wish I'd kept, as you said, that pot or pan. Uh, but it's a pot or pan at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yes.
It
Right.
Yeah.
doesn't take you 2 minutes to go and get another one.
Yes.
But
Right.
we did the same when we sold our big house. It was a Mallorcan farmhouse, so the furniture suited the house. If
Mm,
we'd have stored it and paid for the storage until we found this property, it would have cost us an awful lot of money, plus the stress of moving and shunting it around, only to
Right.
find we bought a modern apartment and it wouldn't have fitted here anyway.
mm,
So then you'd have
yes.
ended up
Right.
selling it. So, we made the decision when we sold that we'd sell it with the furniture
Yeah.
in the property. And I think that's such a lovely way to go,
Yeah.
I
to
Uh,
move
do. I think
on.
there's something about really appreciating how those things served you in that time.
Yeah.
mhm.
And then just that Marie Kondo idea of thanking them for their service and appreciating them, but saying, I don't need this anymore, because we
Yes.
don't need almost any of it.
Yeah.
And we're attached to it for really weird reasons. Like that thing is not that person.
That's
Yes.
interesting, isn't it? I love that because if you think about it, the monks walking around in their beautiful orange togas, and
Yes.
their rice bowl, nothing else.
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
what do we need in life? Very
What do we
little,
need?
really.
Oh, and now that I think about it, my mom, after she retired, was working at a storage unit facility and had this visibility into like people would just have these, I mean, huge storage garages full and full and full of stuff
Stuff.
that just stuff. And they would pay so much money. And you think about yeah, where does it even end up going in the end? And I think that is,
It
yeah,
goes on
but
that TV show where people go bid on one store
where they
shoe.
bid on your
Like
thing
strangers
with your
are then going to go
stuff.
through your stuff, and then yeah,
Yeah.
I don't get
So
it.
I think that gives you a
Don't get
whole
it.
different perspective on it too.
Mhm.
Oh, I love all the idea around this, and just the lighter footprint on the earth is just
I do
something I
too.
think you can approach a lot of decisions in life with. But
I know, and I
oh my
wish we
gosh,
weren't 45 minutes in,
I
because I'm not
know.
kidding, Kay. I could talk to you all day long. Like, I just want to hear your
I'll come
stories.
back. Promise. I
Yeah.
promise. Just invite me and I'll come back.
I
All
know,
right,
I know.
please.
But in the meantime, where is the best place for listeners to learn more about you if they want to work with you and get some more of your wisdom and impart it in their lives?
Yeah, come to the website knewton.com. I'll search for K Newton on Facebook or Midlife Strategies. I have a group for women over 15 or 45 plus called Midlife Strategies. So
Yes, I
come and
just
find them.
joined. I'm so
You
excited.
have, I've seen.
Oh, good. I need to join.
Yes, I know. I can't believe I didn't find it before, because we've been talking about you
Oh, I
and chatting
know.
with you and stuff for a month or so now. But then I was like, oh, I didn't know there was a group. So yes,
Well,
very
Facebook's
excited.
funny about what it shows you. So you
It
That's
may
certainly
search and
is.
true.
it
You
didn't
know
tell
what?
Totally.
you.
I just saw two posts today from our own Facebook group that you must have done that I had not seen, and they were like a couple days old. I was like, I don't even see
That
stuff in my
happens
own
to me
group. Yeah.
periodically. I saw something that you posted and I was like, well, I didn't realize it was you at first. And I was like, look at that. That's great. Oh, it's us. It's Suzanne did it.
Oh dear. Okay, so that is terrific. We'll send people there, and we will put your links in the show notes. And you also have a really great free downloadable that people can get there as well. So we'll put the link to that as well.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're ready for some look, listen,
think we are.
learn. So, just in case this is anybody's first time listening, thank you so much. We're so happy you're here. But if you're not familiar with the look, listen, learn, it's time where we take some time to talk about some of the favorite things that we've been either reading or watching or listening to or learning about. And Kay, we don't like to put guests on the spot first, just in case in case it's a
You.
surprise. So I'll kick things off this time. I usually throw Missy into it, but I'll go ahead
Yeah.
and start this time. So I have been looking at or watching Inventing Anna. I'm not sure if you are familiar with this.
I've seen it. It's been shown to, I haven't seen the show, but
Yeah.
Netflix keeps wanting me to
Check
it
like,
out.
You should watch this. It's one of those
Yeah.
99% matches. This
Yeah.
ticks all the buttons of your crazy things you like to watch. But one of my favorite things I want to watch, Julia Garner from Ozark, what's her Ruth? She plays Ruth on Ozark. Plays the main character, who is Anna. It's a little bit different for us because we typically watch documentaries about people's real lives, but this is done by Shonda Rhimes, and it's done in a very Shonda Rhimes way. I mean, it's beautifully done and fun and sassy and it's not a documentary. And it's also a little distracting because it's literally like 80% of the cast of Scandal. We're like, wait a minute, that lady was a vice president. Wait a minute, he was that guy. Wait a minute, she's the assistant. So it's like a little weird reunion of Scandal, which is a little disturbing, but not quite as disturbing as Anna's accent, which I guess in interviews that I've read with Julia Garner is really how this Anna spoke. I think she was born in Russia, raised in Germany, but she learned English by watching shows like Gossip Girl and stuff. So she kind of has this weird rich
got that
girl
Upper
twang.
East Side.
I don't know, but it's very bizarre, but I guess accurate. I have not heard the real Anna. Okay. But for people who don't know Anna's story, she was this 20-something socialite, quote unquote, who posed as a rich German heiress. She went by the name Anna Delvey, but I think her actual name was Anna Sorkin. And she just got this obscene amount of money through friends, mentors, banks, just by kind of aligning herself with the right people and just kind of mooching off them long enough for someone to be like, oh, well, if she's friends with them, then she must be safe, But I can't believe how much money she got. She's in prison now, but it's just so crazy. And it's fun. We'll see. We're on episode 3 or 4. It's kind of one of those things where like, I'm not recommending it. I'm just letting you know it's there.
That's what you're listening and learning.
I'm learning about whether I want to look at it anymore. And last week I shared a look, listen, learn of One by One by Ruth Ware. And I have also discovered, this is my learning, that apparently my new favorite book trope is rich people who get stuck in the Alps getting murdered one by one during an avalanche threat, because I was also reading Sarah Pierce's debut novel, The Sanatorium, which takes place in an old sanatorium, which is turned into a hotel, which, along with the trope, it's a luxury resort now in Switzerland. And this woman, the main character, is there to celebrate the engagement of her brother. There's all this backstory there about, like, maybe he killed their little brother when they were younger. Maybe he's just a nice guy. I don't know. And then when people start dying, like, who's killing everybody? And they're dying in these weird, I mean, it's very disturbing. It's just a whole mess. But anyway, the most disturbing part of the whole thing is that, like, there's this avalanche and this huge storm and all these things are happening, but, like, she has just 100% amazing, reliable internet during the whole thing. And I'm like,
Clearly doesn't use the same service I use.
I know. I'm like, can you talk to Greg Abbott about the Texas power grid? Like, if we get 10 snowflakes, our entire state's down and has no electricity for 5 days. So yes, I had no suspension of disbelief at that point. But fun books. Again, read the Amazon. There's not a whole lot of stars on it. I had fun with it. I was just listening to it while I was running and training this week. But
That's perfect.
So yes, if you are into people getting murdered in fancy hotels during avalanches, those are two books to read. All right, Kay, what about you?
Well, I just don't know what to say now after all that. That's just amazing. I think my life's very, very boring in comparison. So I want to share with you a book by a good friend of mine, Linda Polio, called Trusting the Currents.
Oh,
read it if you can. I've read it once and I'm reading it again. And it's an interesting book because you can read it at different levels. So it's the story that she wrote. It's her story, but it's also the fact that she had this download, this person arrived in her mind from nowhere. And it's her story, the story of Adie Mae and what happens to her. Very, very interesting, but you can literally read it at different levels. So I've read it once as a storybook, and now I'm going back to look at it in much deeper personal levels. So very, very interesting book.
Oh, interesting.
The other one listening to is a podcast by a lady called Carol Chapman called Hearts Rise Up. It's won all sorts of awards because it's really, really good quality. I love the conversations she has with the people there, very inspiring. Lots of information there on self-help and development, which is something that I'm interested in. And the other one is a local lady called Saskia Griffiths. And Saskia, I met in September this year, and she's been teaching me all about fascia, which is the skin around your body. You know, it's the big thing around your muscles, your body, between your skin. Yeah. And she has a thing called Realign, and we do classes like month events. So we started again on Monday. We work from home, 45 minutes, and she puts me in all these amazingly strange positions. And the thing for me that I find so fascinating, I'm learning about my body, but I'm learning about the space within my body, which is something I've never, ever thought about before. And so I love it. It's very, very exciting. And I learn something every time as I do it.
Oh, that
is fascinating.
I know.
And feels amazing to release that. Like
it's absolutely amazing. You know, you find yourself in a really weird position, and then you go, oh, there's a space there between my lower rib cage and my next, and oh, wow. And if I just twist a bit more, wow, you know, the whole thing is just, I love it. Gives me goosepimples. Exciting.
Yeah, because we spend so much of our life either curled up looking at a phone or hunched over at a computer, or even I find myself when I'm watching TV. I mean, our life is just so tight and just contracted. So
and the more we're tight and contracted, the more our organs can't work properly, and then we wonder why we get ill.
I know. Right. That makes me want to. Whoops! My shirt fell off there. That's why I
have
create
a great
too much
local
space.
guy, so I'll put it in the show notes, who does work with releasing all of that. So I'll put that in the show notes if you can't get to Spain.
And I'll pass you Saskia's as well, because she's working online, so you can meet her via Zoom, and
Oh,
classes we do via
Amazing.
Zoom, which are just amazing.
I know.
Oh, I was thinking she came to your home. Oh, I get it. Like you were at
No,
home and she's on.
I'm at
Oh, we need
home,
her
and
information then.
yeah, no, she lives in Ibiza. She lives in the next island across. So
Oh,
yeah,
very cool. Okay. Yes.
yeah.
We'll definitely put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing that I should really share with you. I have another good friend called Griselda who has a Facebook group called Looking After Mum and Dad.
Oh,
It's not a big group, it's not a busy group, and it's quite UK based, but it's an interesting place where you can go if you're looking for a safe place to find information or to share where you are, if you are looking after elderly parents. So that may be something that your listeners may be interested in.
Yeah.
definitely.
So we'll put that in the notes too.
Perfect.
All right, Missy.
Okay. I have been rereading I Miss You When I Blink
I've
by
got that
Mary
in
Laura
here.
Philpott. I have it up
Sorry, I tried to get mine and I knocked out my office.
there. I just love it so much. And I just needed that. I just needed her voice recently. She has a new book as well, which has the greatest cover ever. I don't have it in my hands yet. I swear I pre-ordered it, so it should be here, but it's not. So I need to go research, like, did I not hit buy or did it not show up? I don't know, but so I don't have the new one, but Bomb Shelter, I think is the title of the new one.
Yeah,
and
it
it has her turtle on it. Her turtle or her tortoise who knocks on the door every morning. Do you know that
so
story?
cute. Yes, to come get a strawberry.
Yeah. He comes up
So
to the door
sweet.
and bonks on her door and then she feeds him and it's amazing.
And then he goes away.
But that's the kind of person she is, that she would have this little creature who just has chosen her in her home.
Yes.
So I needed her voice recently and I picked it up and I love it. And so if you haven't read it, read it and then go buy the new one.
Yeah.
And then my other one is not real smart, but I thought it was perfect for today because we're talking about this midlife time. I have found that I am now trying to find cosmetics and products that work on middle-aged skin. Things just sit differently than they used to. And I'm pretty much a sunscreen and mascara girl. But for doing this, I try to put on a little more eye makeup so that I have a face and maybe some lipstick. And my go-to products that I used for years just sort of sit weird on different almost 50-year-old skin. So I got sucked into an Instagram or a Facebook ad or something for Ilia Cosmetics.
Okay.
So I will report in a couple weeks. I have it on today for the first time. It feels really good on, but it's a sunscreen.
Well, it
It has
looks
just
good.
a little bit of tint. Well, thanks. I mean, who can tell in this light, right? But I'll let you know how it wears, like if it stays on, if it feels good, if my skin doesn't break out, all of that kind of stuff. But the products themselves are supposed to be clean and really beautifully packaged. So that works for me. I'm a sucker for the pretty package.
Yes.
And so anyway, I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it goes. But I
Okay.
like everything I've tried just initially.
So that's a
me.
continued learn, a to be continued learn.
To be continued. It's like a little teaser.
It is. Before and after. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we did it. We got you finished in time, Kate. I'm
Yes.
so proud of us. I don't think we've ever ended on time.
No, probably. This is probably a first.
Yay.
Put it in the record books.
Then I definitely have to come back.
Yes.
There's something wrong.
No, you told us you had a cutoff and we didn't want to mess
Yes.
with you. And so,
Yeah.
yes, we got you.
We know you have to go, but we thank you so much for your time.
Such
Thank you
great
for having us,
information.
ladies. It's been great fun. And
Oh.
I can't wait to see you again.
Well, thank you for putting up with my super long questions. That's why we usually run over. Oh, well, thank you again. We really appreciate it. You have a wonderful, this is your evening, I guess.
It's
Good
evening.
night
Yeah.
to you.
Have a great evening.
Evening now, yeah. The sun's just about to go down.
Well, we're going to go have lunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. You take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Mom and ... podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show. And if you know someone else who could benefit from the episode, please be sure and share it with them. And while we're begging, please subscribe and rate us wherever it is you listen to podcasts. You can find links to all the things we discussed today in our show notes or over at our website, momandpodcast.com, with the A-N-D spelled out. In between shows, find us over at the socials, including our private Mom and Community Facebook group. The links to that group and all of our socials can be found at momandpodcast.com. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you more than you know. Now go out there and make your ellipses count.